It's very humbling to practice this medicine because if it's done properly, it has an extraordinary effect. It really does. And so our job in this profession is to constantly try to improve the delivery of it, because there's no standard of care, of course. It's not like you're in Western medicine. In America, you have the American Medical Association, which provides you a cookbook. And even if you graduated at the bottom of your medical school, you just look up in your cookbook, high blood pressure, give these drugs. And they all look up in their cookbook. And they have to follow the cookbook, otherwise they run into legal problems. But there's no cookbook in Chinese medicine. And so there's no standard of care. That's one major problem. Without a standard of care, you have positives and you have negatives. The negative is that very often you have a very low standard of care, and so people aren't getting well that quick. They're not getting well with the medicine. It's not working really. But the good thing about not having a standard of care is that really geniuses in the medicine can create all kinds of new stuff without anyone trying to regulate them. And so I'm not much of a fan for regulation because it takes away the creativity. I mean, if you have to follow the cookbook, that's not very creative, right? The problem in our medicine is enormous. We have all kinds of accredited medical schools in England and Europe and the United States. In the United States alone, there's 60 of them. And they, of course, produce master's degrees and PhDs in Chinese medicine. But it's not the real Chinese medicine. That's the problem. It's sort of Sully de Morant's energetic medicine. It really has nothing to do with the medicine of the Wang Di Neijing. What we're practicing today has nothing to do with ancient Chinese medicine. You should understand that. What you're doing is a modern invention out of the mind of a French diplomat. Are you aware of that? It is a fact, undeniable. The word qi doesn't even mean energy. And there are no energy meridians. All those energy meridians you learn, complete bogus. That's a mistranslation by the French in the 1930s. The Neijing is very clear. The body is covered with Zhuet Mai, blood vessels, lots of them. Big ones, like the Chong Mai, the descending aorta, and then all the collateral vessels which go into the organ systems, and then the Jing Mai, the big longitudinal blood vessels, arteries that run down and veins that run back, all pumped by a pump called the heart, reoxygenated in the lung. And what is oxygen in ancient Chinese medicine? It's qi, vital air. It doesn't translate as energy. Did you know that? How many are not aware of this? Come on, you can raise your hands. Okay. We all have degrees in energy medicine, all of us. But it's not an energy medicine. That's a big problem. It's tragic because it turned our medicine into a new age medicine. Once you start describing the body as covered with energy meridians, it's Pandora's box for every psychic and God knows what to start saying they're practicing Chinese medicine. This is a physiological medicine. It always was a physiological medicine. Look at the Neijing. Don't look at anything else. And the Neijing is very clear. There are no energy meridians in the Neijing. None. There's Zhuet, which means what? Blood. And what's a Mai? Vessel. Is there a word Mai in the Han language for a meridian? No. The concept didn't even exist. It's blood vessels. Ji Mai, Shu Mai, Jing Mai, Lo Mai, and Sun Mai. An entire piping system from gigantic big pipes to little tiny little Sun Mai, microscopic vessels called arterioles and venules, where the yin vessels then reconnect back to the yang vessels, and the deoxygenated blood is then shipped back through the veins, back to the lungs to have qi infused into the vascular system, then sent over to the heart to be pumped through the body again. We are being held back because of this ridiculous energy nonsense. I'm sorry. And I spent 10 years in a yogic monastery. I have the credentials to get up here and talk about energy. A lot of credentials. 52 years of energy meditation. I did 2 hours this morning. I have nothing against energy, don't get me wrong. But the truth is the truth. That's simply what the Neijing is not talking about. If you look at the Neijing, it's emergency medicine. People are bleeding out, and they're trying to stop the bleeding. They're taking big, huge needles, trying to break up blood stasis in these veins and arteries. It's almost surgical procedures. Trying to figure out, where is the blood blocked and how to fix it. The main etiology of disease in Chinese medicine is blood stasis. That's the granddaddy of all of them. Everything, health is highly oxygenated, highly nutritious blood coursing through the human body. That is health. And if there's any blockages anywhere on the distribution of Jingmai, or yin qi, which translates as the nutrient extracted from food, if there's any blockage in the yin qi, there's going to be trouble. Then body parts begin to suffer from lack of nutrient, lack of delivery of qi, vital air, and the lack of delivery of yin qi, nutrient. And that's why we get sick. And the sicknesses are yin diseases, yang diseases, heat diseases, cold diseases, deficiency diseases, excess diseases, all caused by blood stasis. The energy interpretation of Chinese medicine is going to sink us. That's why the physical therapists in America are taking over our industry. We're being hung by our own petard. Because you know what they say to the judges? We're not doing acupuncture with our dry needling. We're needling into real tissue. They're needling into energy meridians. And the judge says, is that true? What are you going to say? Well, actually, that's not true. Well, the judge says, well, all your school says that's what's true. Your degree says it's an energy meridian. All the stuff you write about is energy meridians. So the physical therapists have a point. They're needling real tissue. You're needling energy meridians. Case closed. Physical therapist, you get to do dry needling with an acupuncture needle. You're going to lose your profession, guys. You better wake up fast. Your days are numbered. They are numbered. You had better start describing this stuff for what it really is. This is real medicine. This is the flow of blood or lack of it through the body with the wide open circulation of the vessels with a very healthy pump. That's Chinese medicine. That's the emperor's medicine. That's what kept the emperors alive, not energy, for Christ's sakes. Now, I just finished off 15 slides, and I don't have to talk about them now because I gave them to you. These are I gave you a bunch of various translations from the Neijing with quotes, and they're not my translations. They're one of the top professors at Hong Kong Medical School, for Chinese Medical School in Hong Kong. There's translations in there. There's passages in there translated by Unshield. I'm not making this up. The top sinologists in the world totally agree with me. Unshield is the #1 translator of ancient Chinese medical texts in the world, an expert on the Neijing, says unequivocally, quote, those of you in the TCM community, that's us, who keep calling qi energy have to understand there is no historical basis for that translation whatsoever, end quote. So stop with the energy nonsense. If you want to do Reiki, that's great, but it's not Chinese medicine. If you want to ring bells over the chakras, that's great, but that's not Chinese medicine. What is Chinese medicine? The next 4 days, you're going to learn what Chinese medicine is. So just throw out all that crap, and we'll start over again. Now, anybody wants to leave now, they can. You know, I've been screaming about this for, I've been screaming about this for 15 years because I've been teaching, and now everybody's just used to it. Oh, that's Bob. It's beginning to have an inroad, though. It is. I'm finally beginning to be heard. Because you pull out any Chinese English dictionary, and not the kind with all the slang in it, real dictionaries, medical dictionaries, English, Chinese, and look up the word qi and look up the word mai. I challenge you, you will not find qi translated as energy. There could be 12 different meanings depending on context, because Chinese, Mandarin, and the Han language as well is a contextual language, depending on context. But there's no context to which the word qi could ever be called energy. Did you know that? There's not one context. It can mean the continents of your face. It can be heaven. God knows what it can be. But the number one meaning in a medical sense is vital air, the essence of air. And what could that be? I wonder. It flows in the vessel system and it's extracted from the Da Qi. What could that be? Oh, oxygen. No, you can't call that oxygen. That's outrageous. I always get a kick out of these people on Facebook. I said about 10 years ago, it's oxygen, you morons. And they went completely nuts. That's outrageous. You're not a scholar. That's outrageous. I'm always amazed at this reaction. You know why? If you're so pissed off that I gave it the oxygen label, which is actually very close to the word vital air, right? Why haven't you been upset for 30 years with the energy translation, which doesn't even exist in the Han language? Why weren't you upset about that? Why weren't you getting all bent out of shape when somebody had been saying qi is energy for all these years? How does energy translation get a pass and the oxygen translation is Armageddon? They took this incredible, genius medicine and reduced it to babble.